Shabbat Shalom. I am so thrilled. I was not expecting this many people for this service. It's a very different service, a little bit of an acquired taste, if you will, for those of you who might say, Rabbi, what are you talking about? Well, tonight's service is something called a Humanistic Judaism service. So what that is a service where we are not, through our liturgy, reflecting a belief in a deity, a belief in God. Now, many people don't know that before I came to Congregation Etz Chaim, I worked at a congregation that was somewhere between a Reform and a Humanist congregation, but it wasn't aligned with either denomination, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on, why they're not aligned, because they weren't allowed into the club, if you will, or the tent, but that's a story for later. But I wanted to just point out a couple of things that many people don't know about humanist Judaism. In the Gates of Blue, Gates of Prayer, this is the New Union Prayer Book, which I guess we can say is the Old Union Prayer Book because it's so old we don't use it anymore. But the 6th service, we used this book from the 1980s until about 2006. The service number 6 is a humanist service in the Old Reformed Prayer Book. So just know that they buried the humanist service inside the Reformed Prayer Book because they understood that there were so many people who did not have a belief in God, if you will, or any kind of deity. So there's no mention of God in the English, but it does take the same liturgy as the Hebrew. Now, why did the CCAR, the Central Conference of Reform Rabbis, include a humanist service in the Old Reform Prayer Book? Please know that for centuries, Jews have tried to understand God and the relationship with God in the world. Great Jewish thinkers like Maimonides, Spinoza, Mordechai Kaplan, they have grappled with these questions of God as well, and invites us into the struggle. Now, obviously, we have a God concept in the Torah that's going to be different than the God concept in the book of the prophets. We don't even find mention of God in the book of Esther, which we read on Purim. But for each person, they get to define their own concept of God and how to relate to the world. Many Jewish thinkers have suggested differing ways of how God interacts and participates, or does not participate, in the affairs of the world. And in our more modern understanding, feminist theologians have sought to reconcile the traditional male interpretation of God and modern feminist thought. So there's always been and continues to be great diversity in the Jewish understanding of God. So no one has to accept a predefined concept of God to be Jewish. Every Jewish person has always had the right to understand the term God as you determine. And that is evidenced by the fact that a classic definition for the word Jewish, one who is born of a Jewish mother or one who converts according to traditional law, never asks somebody if they believe in God. They do not have to declare a belief in God in order to become Jewish. And it's clear from the definition that belief is not a primary factor in determining who is seen as Jewish in the Jewish community. And because we lack a definition of what one must believe to be Jewish, a Jewish person can accept any theological stand and still remain seen as fully Jewish. And so tonight we are going to use a Shabbat service that I have gleaned from the congregation where I used to work many, many years ago, back when I was a student rabbi at Congregation Beth Adam in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so, we begin our service with the singing of Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. How good and how pleasant it is for friends and our community to sit together. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, 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 shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, ya la 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 la. Hine matov, ya la 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 la. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Well, the Simons came in, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to read again my introduction. So, okay, I'm just kidding. But not to embarrass you, but to make you feel very welcome, I underestimated how many people were going to be here tonight. So what we're going to do, because we have 6, 5, and I saw 2 people, so we need 8 more services. Can you take that service? Do you know how to work the, okay. And while Pat lovingly prints out 8 more services, we're going to stall. And I'm going to talk about myself. And the reason I am barefoot is because my toe that I broke, that I gave that sermon about earlier this summer, is still not healing as quickly as, and part of it is because every week I'm stuffing my toe into those little pumps, and it's exacerbating the swelling. And I could have worn slippers, but it clashed with the suit. So I'm just barefoot, so I'm just going to say stay away from my toe, don't step on them, and everybody wins. Okay, does everybody have your Siddur, your Siddurim, your prayer book? Yeah, I hope so. What we're going to do is, until Pat comes back, we're going to do a sing-along. And this is how we're going to stall until everybody can have a full service. Okay? So let's go ahead, and in your Siddur, everybody should have one of these. Yeah, great. We want to go to page 342. Page 342. We're going to sing the song Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah. One good deed begets another good deed, but a sinful act, well, it brings on more sinful acts, which always proves the idea that you cannot cheat in only one area of your life. That if you are not being honest, if you're outside your integrity, it's going to bleed into other aspects of your life. So we always want to stay on the good path, on the path of mitzvot, where we're doing good deeds, not because we're going to get zapped in the patooties, but rather because it is the right thing to do, and the reward for good living is a good life. So please join me, page 342. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Avera goreret avera. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Goreret mitzvah. Ya la 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 la. Lehiot tzadik. Zetov. Zetov. Lehiot tzadik. Zetov meh. Oh, 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 mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Avera goreret avera. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Goreret mitzvah. Ya la 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 la. Lehiot tzadik. Zetov. Zetov. Lehiot tzadik. Zetov meh. Oh, 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 big finish, guys. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Woo! Avera goreret avera. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Goreret mitzvah. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Well done. I like it. All right, let's go ahead and turn to page 340. Page 340. Scott, this is for you, honey. Heveinu shalom alechem. Alechem heveinu shalom. Heveinu shalom alechem. Alechem heveinu shalom. Hine matov umanahim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanahim shevet achim gam yachad. Thank you. Heveinu shalom alechem. Alechem heveinu shalom. Heveinu shalom alechem. Alechem heveinu shalom. Hine matov umanahim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanahim shevet achim gam yachad. Oh baby, heveinu shalom alechem. Alechem heveinu shalom. Heveinu shalom alechem. Alechem heveinu. Alechem heveinu. Alechem heveinu shalom. Well, I have to say that the Xeroxing is taking a little longer than I thought. And that's okay, because I have more songs. Nobody likes to share. Okay, we can, we're good? Okay. I mean, I don't mind Susie going and, if she puts a little pressure on Pat, that's okay. I'm all about, a little pressure. Okay. All right. We can just do one more song, just humor me. Page 353. Let's do O Javo Shalom Aleinu. I know you guys know this one, so please sing it with me. O Javo Shalom Aleinu, O Javo Shalom Aleinu, O Javo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. O Javo Shalom Aleinu, O Javo Shalom Aleinu, O Javo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu. Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam, shalom. Big finish. Well done. Okay, guys, now everybody has, okay, no more sharing. I know sharing is caring, but, you know, we can do this. All right. So, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As Shabbat approaches, the evening beckons us, inviting us to slow the pulse of our daily activities, to consider a different pace. It is at this time, at the end of our hectic week, that we create a silent space, a place to deepen our awareness of the passage of time. We pause to renew our vision, to refresh our spirit, and to embrace the wonders of life. Let's read together. As Shabbat approaches, we dare to dream. The dusk softens the stark light, often looks harsh, uncompromising, unbending. The night can intensify our imagination, encourage our hopes. May we use this time, this Shabbat, to renew our confidence. Let us look not only at the fragility of our lives, at the trials and disappointments. Let us emphasize the strength of our lives, the successes, the many pleasures that make up the fabric of our lives. Shabbat reminds us of the passage of time, encouraging us to use our time wisely, giving meaning to our lives. Shabbat reminds us of the beauty in life, allowing us to reflect upon the joys, the treasured moments in our days. Shabbat reminds us of the values of our Jewish heritage, prompting us to use this time, as did our ancestors, to consider what gives value to our lives. It is my pleasure at this time to invite up Cynthia Ellis to sanctify our Shabbat candles.
Night seeps up from the ground. Light falls from the stars, distant, icy, ancient beyond all who came before. But the light of the Sabbath is warm. The light of the Sabbath is ours. The light of the Sabbath is of this time, of this place, of lives that know the past only in a dream. As we kindle these lights together,
We create a place of warmth.
As we kindle these lights,
We welcome time for reflection.
as we kindle these lights,
We stake our claim.
and while these lights burn, the time is ours. Baruch Haor Ba'olam.
Blessed is the light within the world. Baruch Haor Ba'adam. Blessed is the light within each person. Baruch Haor Ba'Shabbat. Blessed is the light of the Sabbath.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Please join me in the singing of Ma Yafeh Hayom. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. it is my pleasure to invite to the bima to lead us in Let the Sabbath Be, Simon Ellis. I was going to invite Scott Simon, but I thought, nope, wrong Simon.
Let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let us listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly. Let the Sabbath shine a light into a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed. Let us remember a reason to be joyful, a way to be gentle.
Earlier this week, a colleague of mine just started an internship, if you will, of rabbis together who come together and they go on silent retreats. And I said to my friend, with all due respect, is that not an oxymoron, a group of rabbis having a silent retreat? Like, that never happened anywhere. And she said, I know, but that's why we need it. Because all we do is talk and listen so often that sometimes if we don't carve out sacred space for ourselves, we burn out. And so she said, you know, Rabbi, it might be time for you to join our silent retreat. And I said, with all due respect, Rachel, I can't separate from my phone for 5 minutes, let alone 5 days. Like, I just could not see myself having a silent retreat, except if I could have my phone, which kind of is the whole idea is no, you're supposed to get away from outside voices and just listen to the inside voice. So after we got off the phone, I realized that anything that I am resistant to is actually the very thing that I might need to consider having more of in my life. And I want to invite you to consider, what is it that you are reluctant to do? What is it that you are resistant to the idea of? And you don't have to do anything about it, but just become aware. Because a farmer doesn't go out to his field and just throw seeds onto the soil and hope that something grows. The farmer tests the soil when it's time and amends it if it is nutrient deficient. The farmer plows it and makes sure there's no weeds, breaks up all the clumps, so that when it's time to plant the seeds, they are planted at the appropriate width apart from one another. And then the farmer creates the conditions for growth to happen. The farmer doesn't cause the growth to happen. The farmer causes the conditions for growth to happen and then waters it, hopes that the sun will shine, and that is what causes growth. So for we who are constantly evolving organisms of spirituality, when we consider what is it that we are resistant to, that is the beginning of assessing the ground. What needs to be added or amended or changed about the ground so that eventually something can be planted there and something can grow. I was shocked by my resistance to a silent retreat, and stay tuned for the next few months. You will probably be hearing about, oh, Rabbi's going on a silent retreat. How did that happen? Well, let's do the footwork and see what growth can occur. Let's take a moment to do some breathing, to be fully present in this holy time of being together as a group of people who came to this evening for an experience. Let us draw in a deep breath. Hold it and release. Let's do that 2 more times. We're going to take a deep breath in, hold, and release. Deep breath in, hold, and release. This meditative silence is awkward and uncomfortable. I feel social media calling me. And yet, the resisting of the call to be fully here and present is where the growth can occur. Because true connection does not come through a phone or through any kind of electronic. It comes when a hand reaches out for another hand, when a body sits next to another body, and we can stave off the disease of loneliness by truly looking into another person's eyes and seeing their humanity and knowing that we are all here for a purpose, and our job as human beings is to grow in understanding of what that purpose is from one Shabbat to the next. Page 3. To this place we come to lengthen our perspective. To this place we come to question and explore. In this place we awaken our imaginations. In this place we draw strength as we allow ourselves to dream. Together we share the challenges of an ever-changing world, a world often beyond our control, incomprehensible and frightening. Together we seek to find meaning, ease our fears, understand our purpose. Together we share the burden and the blessing of responsibility. Today we join together in the safety of community as we reflect on our Jewish heritage. Today we join together in the bond of community as we celebrate this moment. Please feel free to join me in the singing of Lo Yisa Goy, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, nor shall they ever know war anymore. Lo Yisa Goy el Goy Cherev, Lo yilmedu od milchama, Lo Yisa Goy el Goy Cherev, Lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo Yisa Goy el Goy Cherev, Lo yilmedu od milchama, Lo Yisa Goy el Goy Cherev, Lo yilmedu od milchama, Lo Yisa Goy el Goy Cherev, Lo yilmedu od milchama, Lo Yisa Goy el Goy Cherev, Lo yilmedu od milchama. I'd like to teach a little bit about the coincidence, or lack thereof, of this wonderful Shabbat by telling some experience that I had this past week. As I was on social media, shock and surprise, I read 2 stories, and I can't stop thinking about them. The first story was from a church down the road in LaGrange, Illinois. You all know LaGrange. It's an ordinary town on an ordinary evening when something extremely uncomfortable happened, and that is that Congressman Sean Casten was scheduled to speak. But before he could begin, the sanctuary filled with protest, and a group stood up, arms linked, signs held high, voices rising to chant for Gaza. Some of the protesters were Jewish, some were not, but all of them were insistent. All of them were raw, urgent, and they had to cancel the event. There was no dialogue. It was just disruption. And some called it justice, others called it erasure, some called it heartbreaking. The second story unfolded not in a public forum, but in a private home. My friend posted a story about a woman, an Israeli, who was grieving the loss of her soldier son as she sat with her American cousin, who was a progressive Jew visiting Israel. And the American cousin wanted to say something, but she didn't know how or what to say. And so they sat in silence, not out of apathy, but because the space between them had become too charged, too fragile. And so the pain was so deep, they didn't even have words for each other, and they didn't trust each other enough, because the progressive cousin was going to be talking about how, well, maybe Israel had some culpability in this, and that would be the wrong thing to say to a grieving mother. So they sat alone, together. And I wonder to myself, what does love look like in a moment like that? Where does comfort mean when people want to comfort, but then they also can't seem to hear, or they can't hear us? This is Shabbat Nachamu. Nachamu is the Shabbat that comes after Tisha B'Av, which is the day we commemorate the destruction of the first and second temples and all the bad things that befell the Jewish people. It is traditionally a day when we don't work, we fast, and we are supposed to mourn for the destroyed temples and, of course, all the brokenness. And so in the Haftarah portion that we would be reading on this Shabbat, we hear the words, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, comfort, comfort my people. But how do we comfort each other when we're so raw ourselves? How do we offer solace when we don't even know what direction comfort will even lie? And in traditional communities, this is a divine word, if you will. God is speaking through the prophet Isaiah, promising that comfort is coming. But with a humanistic lens, we don't wait for God to act. The burden is on us. The voice that calls out, comfort my people, is our own voices. There's no celestial balm. It's only what we choose to say to one another, or what we fail to say, and how we live in that space between us, being unable to say words of comfort. And that's where the story of these two cousins stay with me, because I have Israeli cousins. I've known them since we were teenagers, and I can relate to the story because there were two people who love each other, they want to talk, but one has buried her child who was a soldier in Israel, and the other one is struggling to hold her integrity with her progressive values, and neither feels safe, and neither feels that the other will be able to hear them. And so what do they have between them? Silence. And what a painful silence that must be. It's not the silence of peace, but it's the silence of love withheld, not out of malice, but out of discomfort and fear. And then tomorrow, it's like right on time, a confluence of Shabbat Nachamu and something called Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av is a holiday. It's like the Valentine's Day of Israel. Tu is actually Tet Vav. The Tet is 9 and Vav is 6. And together, that's 15. And so the 15th of Av, which, by the way, this is the 15th of Av, and it's a full moon tonight. So for those of you who play Pokemon, this is the night you want to evolve that Pokemon that evolves at the full moon. You're welcome. And so this is the 15th of Av, the Israeli holiday of love. And in ancient times, it was a day of dancing and choosing, of women in white dresses in open fields, and tribes reconcile and marriages begin. But notice that it's placed in the shadow of a holiday that commemorates destruction, Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. Now, one might expect love to come later after the healing, but in the Jewish calendar, it's here now, immediately after the devastation of Tisha B'Av, as if to insist that love is possible, and even though the ground isn't seemingly ripe, something can grow. Tu B'Av is not a sentimental holiday like a Hallmark holiday. It's about vulnerability. It's about standing and allowing yourself to be seen, and about choosing and being chosen, about hope when hope feels unlikely, which brings me back to that protest in LaGrange. So were the protesters like showing love or comfort? Well, it's going to depend on who you ask. For some, it was an act of deep love for those suffering in Gaza, for peace and for justice. And for others, it's a failure to love, a disregard for Jewish safety and for communal pain and for the layers, the complexity of grief. But maybe it's both at the same time. And maybe that's like the terrible truth of this moment, is that love itself has become a site of conflict. And so we're battling over comfort. But that doesn't mean that we stop trying to comfort one another. I think it means that we have to try harder. So Isaiah's words are not passive. Comfort, comfort my people is not a lullaby, it's a demand. Don't give up. Don't close off. Don't abandon the work of human connection just because it is hard. And in a humanistic Jewish worldview where there is no divine intervention, we are the agents of healing and love. We are the ones who have to step into the ruins and rebuild with care, not with the right words, but with willingness to speak or even to just sit and be present. And maybe that's the thread that's connecting Shabbat Nachamu with Tu B'Av. Comfort and love are not easy, and they're not abstract ideals. They're often misunderstood, and they require courage. They require us to be vulnerable and uncomfortable, and to listen to voices that unsettle us, to sit with people whose pain we might not fully understand. We are living through a time where conversations are being shut down, where silence is both a wound and a refuge, and where love is strained by politics and fear. But what else do we have if not each other? So, I'm going to posit that the only way forward is not to be right, but to just be present. Not to resolve the tension, but to make room for it, to not fix each other, but to just say, I see you, I still care. And that's the work of being human. And it may be, in the end, the truest form of love that we can give. So Shabbat Nachamu, how amazing or coincidence that it falls exactly on Tu B'Av. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think it's an invitation that we become brave enough to comfort and soft enough to love now when we need it most. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Pat Gibbs with some announcements on behalf of the board. Thank you to our ushers, John Bierman and Paul Farber, and our security team. Shabbatapalooza is in 2 weeks on August 22nd. This free extravaganza includes a wine and scotch tasting, woohoo, fantastic food from Texas Roadhouse and Simon's Restaurant, and delicious dessert from Kona Ice, followed by a Shabbat service. High holiday registration opens on August 22nd. For more information on upcoming events, check our weekly happenings email And please join us after services for a wonderful oneg. Shabbat Shalom.
At this time in our service, we're going to think about those of our community and families who are ill and in need of healing. And we're going to mention them as we hold them lovingly in our thoughts. We think of Alan Wolski and Alex Quintero, Zora Schutzman, Christine Dumas, Anthony Dumas, Renaud Verdier, Ken Markwell, Barbara Ben-Ezra, Barry Fidlow, Denise Sanfilippo, John Eulenberg, Leslie Cohen, Stacy Getzel, and all who suffer whom we know not by name. Misha Berach, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, V'Yaakov, V'imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, V'Leah, Hu Yevarech v'Rapeh et kol Cholei Yisrael, V'yishlach lahem b'mhera, Refuah Shlema, Refuah Nefesh, Refuah Guf, V'nomar. Amen. May we remember our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, and may those who are ill be blessed and eventually heal. May their health be restored and their vigor renewed. May they have health of body, health of spirit, and of mind, as we say together, Amen. We continue on page 6. May I discover the ability to feel the pain of others, work for others, among others, and there come to feel a part of that to which I belong. May I discover the ability to be alone so that I can go out of the doors each day among the flowers and the trees, among the birds and all that live, beneath the sky and stars and planets, and there come to feel a part of that to which I belong. May I discover the ability to sit in silence so that I may hear not the voice of others, but my own voice, the beat of my heart, the sound of my breath, the utterance of my soul, and here come to feel a part of that to which I belong. Listen to the silence. Our lives are confused by clutter. Interruption abounds, buffeting us about, betraying the silence, slicing into our senses of self. Together, listen to the silence. Shabbat provides a wall against intrusion, yet we must, week by week, construct that wall for ourselves. Shabbat provides the opportunity to change our pace, to find inner peace. Listen to the silence. Shabbat provides the opportunity to discover playful connection with others, to recover our harmony with a force greater than our own, to uncover our oneness with the universe. Listen. Tempting, tantalizing with its continual presence, Shabbat reappears in our cycle of life, offering the possibilities we can only imagine. Yet noise overpowers our ability to hear. Busyness overwhelms our search for calm. We struggle with the demands of our daily lives, losing our power to find serenity. A serenity that is offered to us through our heritage, through the wisdom of our ancestors, ordaining a day of rest. We must, for a time, close our eyes to the ever-growing list of things we must do. In order to see the beauty which surrounds us, we must for a moment listen to the silence within ourselves that allows us to hear the sounds of the universe. White clouds circling above, songs of birds flying through the air, smiles of friendship reaching outward, freely given, laughter of children finding joy in play. Shabbat offers us that opportunity. It reminds us that life offers beauty and joy. Life offers gifts of music, of art, and of nature. In the silence of Shabbat, we touch the treasures of friendship and love. It is ours to savor. It is our choice to make. Let's take a moment to listen to the silence and to have some silent reflection. I want to tell a quick story. And this is a story of the congregation that I used to work at called Beth Adam. And they were located right outside of Cincinnati and were founded in 1980 by my mentor, Rabbi Robert Barr. And Robert Barr had been ordained at Hebrew Union College, same as me, and he took a dramatically different path than his peers. Beth Adam was created to be a humanistic congregation, deeply rooted in tradition, but explicitly non-theistic. So the core principle was that ethics and meaning come from human beings, not from a deity. And the congregation's mission statement made it clear that their liturgy, which was written by congregants, reflected a non-theistic worldview. And in the 1980s, the congregation applied for membership in what was then known as the UAHC, which is the umbrella organization for Reformed congregations, today known as the URJ. And their request sparked a heated debate. Many Reform leaders admired Beth Adam's innovation and commitment to Jewish identity, but other rabbis and leaders were uncomfortable with the congregation's explicit rejection of theism. So some saw it as incompatible with Reform Judaism, the foundational principles, even though Reform Judaism has historically embraced a broad spectrum of belief, from traditional theism to religious naturalism and agnosticism. But ultimately, in 1988, after years of discussion, the UAHC denied Congregation Beth Adam's application. The official reason was that the congregation's liturgical and philosophical stance placed it outside of the Reform movement's tent, if you will, particularly in its rejection of the God language. Rather than weaken Beth Adam, the UAHC's decision actually galvanized the congregation and their sense of identity, and they kind of became a pioneering congregation on the outskirts of Cincinnati. Rabbi Barr just retired last year, so he had served over 40 years as senior rabbi, and he would take young interns such as I and would come and mentor us to go forth into the world, not to be humanistic Jews, but to be able to speak the language of one who struggles with a lack of belief in God. Now you might say, well, Rabbi, that's very talented of you, but I will tell you that it did affect me negatively, and I tell this story every year because I can. And that is the story of when I applied to be the assistant rabbi at this congregation, and Rabbi Bob saw that I worked at Beth Adam, he rejected my application, thinking that I was a humanist rabbi. So his good friend, who used to be a Chicago rabbi and since became a Cincinnati rabbi, called him up when I told Sanford, yeah, I was rejected, they're not going to even interview me. He said, oh, no. So he calls up Rabbi Bob, and he says to Rabbi Bob, you know, just because Rabbi Koznowski has kissed a boy does not make her heterosexual. You might want to think about interviewing her as a rabbi for the congregation. And Rabbi Bob's heart was swayed, and the rest is history. And so I have been the assistant rabbi, then the associate, now senior. I've been here 21 years. And every year we do this humanist service because I want those who struggle with the concept or lack thereof of a deity to feel welcome here, that there is a service for you as well, that we don't have to say God's name in order to be fully Jewish and fully seen as participating in the Jewish community. So know that just as Spinoza challenged the boundaries of supernatural and theism, that Beth Adam and services like this challenge the boundaries as well of what makes a person fully Jewish. And so at the Oneg, I invite you to sit at tables and discuss. Do you have to believe in God to be seen and counted as fully Jewish? Can you be a synagogue without God? The URJ said, yes, but not here. What do you say? At this time in our service, we continue on page 8. It is up to each one of us to be informed and to consider carefully. But ideas are inert if they are not infused with life through acts of love and kindness. To know where we stand is crucial. To act is to be counted. May the visions of our dreams and the wishes of our hearts be fulfilled. The cycle of life unfolds, and just as we rejoice in new life, we mourn its final ending. The inevitable death of those whose lives have touched ours. And tonight we join with others as we say aloud the words which help us to recall those we have lost. We remember the moments we have shared, the laughter and the tears, the beauty and the pain. Inevitably, as our lives intertwined, as we have touched one another, as we have been influenced and changed and enriched by their presence, we also mourn their loss as we celebrate their lives. And thus the cycle continues, their lives forever marking the continued unfolding of our own. We pause at this time to reflect on those who are no longer among us. The moment of remembrance links life to life and generation to generation. We remember with love Isidore Apple, father of Jeffrey Apple, Max Zuckerman, grandfather of Brett Blatcher, Shirley Bob, mother of Rabbi Stephen Bob, Mildred Bogalub, grandmother of Philip Bogalub, Jack Olevsky, father of Robin Channon, David Redmond, father of Sharon Clark, Roger Hirsch, father-in-law of Cynthia Drapak, Esther Frankfeder, mother of Alan Frankfeder, Eva Retsky, grandmother of Joanne Gallagher, Judy Goldberg, mother of Catherine Goldberg, Joseph Schmitz, grandfather of Elizabeth Gossage and Renee Gossage Ray, Fred Haber, husband of Joyce Haber, Jay Hickerson, stepfather of Evan Katz, step-grandfather of Miriam Katz and Aaron Katz, Mildred Lohman, mother of Jeff Lohman, Ira Copen, brother-in-law of Craig Mandel, Shirley Cohen, grandmother of Erica McQueary, Ida Ritzner, grandmother of Michelle Miller, Frances Rosenberg, mother of Paul Rosenberg, Harry Simpson, father of Harvey Simpson, Florence Lair Glixman, aunt of Judith Stein, Adrian Ellsberg, friend of Judy and Robert Stein, Elliot Palais, uncle of Barb Tischler, Frida Wolin, mother of Jerry Wolin, and we mourn the recent passing of David Anthony Modon Cohen, the son of my math teacher from 7th grade, who passed away suddenly 4 weeks ago. At this time, as my hand passes over the room, please feel free to say aloud the name of anyone who is in your heart, whom you would like to remember this evening. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears, in our sorrow, we remember. With our courage and our strength, we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage will remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared is not lost. With our tears, in our sorrow, we remember. With our tears, in our sorrow, we remember. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memories of good people bless our days. If you are comfortably able to do so at this time, please rise for Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divrach irute v'yamlich malchute, B'chaye chon uvyome chon, uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalal uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Please be seated. Well, I am going to come clean. I did our closing song earlier during our sing-along. So now I don't have a closing song. And I'm kind of sad. So that's okay. Because instead of doing a closing song, we're going to have a rousing Kiddushin Motzi so that we can make blessings over the wine and challah, and then we're going to go have cookies and discuss. So please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. Te'avon, everyone, may we be blessed with the courage to go forth to find that which we are frightened of or resistant to, and to explore further, having the courage to go into the darkness, the abyss, and come out with growth on the other side. Shabbat shalom.